achievements in 4 genres: fiction, nonfiction, poetry, and young people's literature. It's about an hour, 15 minutes.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I have an apology to make to our Master of Ceremonies, Steve Martin. For the past 2 years, I have introduced him in a perfunctory manner. I have said that he was, and I quote, the man who needs no introduction, and this is patently untrue and actually kind of rude, and I apologize for doing that. Steve has a multiplicity of talents as a comedian, as an actor, for stage, TV, and screen, and his newest movie, Novocaine, in which he stars with Laura Dern and Helena Bonham Carter, opens on Friday. However, it is in his role as a writer that we are most proud to welcome Steve Martin here. His huge bestseller, Shop Girl, has just come out in paperback. As a matter of fact, I do happen to have a copy here. Bob Miller did not ask me to hold this book up. I'm just doing this on my own volition. Steve wrote the play Picasso at the Lapin Agile, and he has adopted a 1911 German play by Carl Sternheim called The Underpants, which is coming to New York City, eagerly awaited next spring. And he has a work on his next novel, The Pleasure of My Company. We would like to thank you, Steve, for coming all this way, especially at this particular time, to run the show once again. In being so generous with your time and with your obsessively creative energies, you are providing essential support for the National Book Foundation, and thereby to the writing life, and to those of us like you who live within that life. So let's give Steve Martin a very warm welcome.
Thank you. Well, another perfunctory introduction. Good evening and welcome to the annual National Book Awards, the most prestigious and respected acknowledgement a book can receive and still be unknown. I'm so pleased to be standing in this room tonight in the presence of so many great writers, so many legendary publishers, editors, agents, caterers, waiters, busboys, escort girls, neurotics, hypochondriacs, whiners, phone screamers, boy toys, and hotel guests who think this is a restaurant. Tonight we are here not only to present the awards, but to honor Arthur Miller, the great American man of... right there. The great American man of letters and now emails, who wrote many of the greatest plays of the 20th century: Death of a Salesman, After the Fall, A View from the Bridge, The Crucible, and of course, All My Children. I just love the episode where Darla falls in love with the dentist, but he's married to Chet. But the dentist is currently seeing Darla. Says you had to watch every episode, you just couldn't miss one. Anyway, the technical awards were given out earlier today, and the winners will be announced later this evening in the categories of Best Spine Glue, Best Page Numbering, and Best Phony Jacket Blurb Trade-Off from a Friend. And by the way, the nominees for Best Jacket Blurb are, quote, not only was it a page turner, it was a cover closer. And 2, if you like auto mechanics, you'll love these poems. And 3, this is a great summer read. Thank God it's winter. Now, there's been a lot of malicious competitiveness in the book awards this year, which I just hate to see. The poetry category was especially vicious. Cornelius Eady was caught at the typesetters trying to insert an extra iamb into one of Alan Dugan's Alexandrines. Young people's literature was especially brutal. It was reported that Marilyn Nelson called Kate DiCamillo a big brat. And Kate responded, "I know you are, but what am I?" But the unforgivable happened when Jonathan Franzen was caught at Borders trying to sneak an Oprah sticker on Look at Me. Now, I got in the middle of this because I know Oprah, and I called her and asked her if I could have Jonathan's sticker for my book. I offered to trade her 2 of my stickers. I have a Montel and a Jerry Springer. But this whole to-do was actually quite polite. Mr. Franzen explained what he meant, that he wanted a more intellectual aura around his book, and Oprah did not rescind her Book of the Month pick, and Mr. Franzen did not appear on Oprah's show. However, next week he will be appearing on Martha Stewart's Good Morning Wisconsin. Now, I come from Hollywood, where writers are so respected that they're sometimes referred to as coffee. And earlier this year, when I hosted the Academy Awards, I learned all the things that we've been doing wrong here at the National Book Awards. So there will be some changes. First, I'd like to see a lot more weeping. I don't read people very well, and it's the only way I can tell if you're sincere. I think there should be more thanking of hairdressers and stylists. And later in the evening, I will be dancing excerpts from the nominated books. All right. Well, we made it through that. Now, every year at the National Book Awards, on behalf of the Foundation's Board of Directors, it is a tradition to present the Medal for Distinguished Contribution to American Letters. The award is given by the Foundation to an individual, and I quote, "who has enriched our literary heritage during a life of service or through a corpus of work." Well, thank you. This year's medal, accompanied by a gift of $10,000, is underwritten with the generosity of Foundation board member John Ingram, who I am inferring must be loaded, and Ingram Industries. Mr. Ingram, would you please stand? Yes. Tonight we gather to honor Arthur Miller, exemplary man of letters, fearless novelist and short story writer, outspoken topical essayist, journalist and literary critic, down-to-earth, irreverent memoirist, versatile writer for radio, TV, and screen, and as if all of that were not sufficient, our greatest living playwright. Crossing the boundaries of these genres is Arthur Miller's lifelong preoccupation with the condition of men and women joined together in common society. As he puts it, our membership in the ordinary human race. We are trying to save ourselves separately, Arthur Miller has cautioned, and that is immoral. His belief in the responsibility and obligation of the artist as a social being, he is well known for his decades-long commitment to pen, is balanced by an unsparing commitment to art as truth-telling, a quality as eternal as the ancient Greek tragedians he has always admired, yet especially pertinent to these times. Literature and art, Miller says, are not required to reassure, when in reality there is no assurance, or to serve up clean and wholesome stories in all times and places. Whatever he has written over 7 decades, Arthur Miller monitors the tempo of time. This vigilance makes his work so modern and continuously vital. He never gives up attempting to capture time's mysterious passage, whether it be the dark history of racial and religious repression, the dependable cycle of seasons allowing him to plow and plant his beloved Connecticut garden, or the uneven memories of all too human characters in his evocative, magical plays. The performer is his art, Miller writes, whereas the writer can step away and leave it for the world to make of it what he will. Indeed, this brief introductory praise cannot possibly do justice to the essence of Arthur Miller's dramatic poetry. So let's watch this excerpt from the 1984 production of Death of a Salesman, starring Dustin Hoffman and John Malkovich, courtesy of Castle Hill Productions. Roll the tape.
What's the report? Boys! What's the report?
Where'd you go this time, Pop? We were lonesome.
Lonesome, huh?
It's every minute.
Don't say. Tell your secret, boys. Don't breathe it to a soul. Someday I'll have my own business and I'll never have to leave home anymore.
Like Uncle Charlie, huh?
Ah, bigger than Uncle Charlie, because Charlie is not liked. He's liked, but he's not well liked.
And where'd you go this time?
Well, I got on the road and I went north to Providence, met the mayor.
The mayor of Providence?
He was sitting in the hotel lobby.
What'd he say?
He said, morning. And I said, oh, you got a fine city here, Mayor. And he had coffee with me, and then I went to Waterbury. Waterbury's a fine city, big clock city, the famous Waterbury clock. Sold a nice building. And then Boston. Boston is the cradle of the revolution. Fine city, a couple other towns, Mass, down to Portland, Bangor, straight home.
Love to go with you sometime.
So when the summer comes.
You promise?
Oh, you and Hap and I'll show you all the towns. There's one thing, boys, I have friends. I can park my car on any street in New England and the cops protect it like their own. This summer, huh?
You betcha, Pop.
We'll take up bathing suits.
Hey, we'll carry your bags, huh?
Oh, look, that'd be something. Me coming to the Boston stores with you boys carrying my bags. What a sensation. You nervous, Biff, about the game?
Not if you're gonna be there.
What do they say about you in school now that they make you captain?
There's a crowd of girls around him every time the classes change.
Pop, this Saturday, just for you, I'm gonna break through for a touchdown.
No, Biff, you weren't supposed to
I'm taking
pass.
one play for Pop. Pop, you watch me. When I take off my helmet, that means I'm breaking out. And you watch me crash through that line.
Oh, wait till I tell this in Boston.
Biff, where are you?
Hey, look at Bernard. What are you looking so anemic about, Bernard?
Got a study, Uncle Willie. He's got regents next week. Bernard, come on, let's box. Listen, Biff, I heard Mr. Birnbaum say that if you don't start studying math, he's going to flunk you and you won't graduate. Now, I heard it.
You better study with Biff. Go ahead.
I heard it.
Pop, you didn't see my sneakers.
Hey, that's a beautiful job of printing.
Yeah, well, just because he prints University of Virginia on his sneakers doesn't mean they got to graduate.
What are you talking about? With scholarships to 3 universities, they're going to flunk him?
Yeah, but I heard Mr.
Oh,
Birnbaum
don't be
say...
a pest, Bernard. What an anemic.
I'm waiting for you in my house, Biff.
Bernard is not well liked, is he?
Pop, he's liked, but he's not well.
That's
that's right,
what I
Bob.
mean. Bernard can get the best marks in school, you understand? But when he gets out into the business world, you understand? You're going to be 5 times ahead of him. That's why I thank Almighty God you both built like Adonises. Because a man who makes an appearance in the business world, a man who creates personal interest, is a man who gets ahead. Be liked, and you will never want. You take me, for instance. I never...
Ladies and gentlemen, Arthur Miller.
Oh, you got to give me a medal.
Congratulations.
That's a great medal.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll go quick because I have 10 minutes. Whenever I get up to thank people for inviting me to speak or accept some honor, I'm immediately assaulted by the memory of the actress Maureen Stapleton, who stepped up to receive her Oscar some years back, and instead of submitting to hallowed custom by thanking her agent, her mother and father, her acting teacher, a few cousins, and the doorman of her apartment house, she cleared her throat and said, "I want to thank everybody I ever met." I feel something similar now, probably because when you come down to it, I'm known primarily as a playwright, and playwrights on the whole are set slightly apart or below book writers. I'm not sure why this is so, unless it has something to do with how we are described. One doesn't speak of book rights, poet rights, or prose rights. We alone are associated, at least nominally, with ship rights, mill rights, boat rights. This is very odd. I've written prose, of course, 2 novels, a lot of short stories, several books of reportage, and so on. But I'm primarily a writer of plays, and playwrights, at least in America, are not generally thought of as literary. The reason for this, most probably, is that they usually aren't. We are regarded at best as hybrids, people who write to be sure, but our prose is basically functional. Actors have to be able to speak words as easily, and it has to nail audiences to their seats. Perhaps it is the utilitarian, the utilitarian strain upon our writing that sets it apart and even helps denigrate it. There were, for instance, a number of masterly European playwrights in the last century whose works have stayed alive through the generations but were left unconsidered for the Nobel Prize. I'm thinking of Chekhov, Strindberg, and Ibsen. And I'll bet you can't name the novelists anymore who did win. O'Neill, who was honored, would probably not have considered himself a literary artist, merely a truthful one. It was more than politeness that moved him to write to O'Casey about one of his plays, "God, I wish I could write like that." From one Irishman to another, this was a hell of a confession. Among American playwrights, at least before Tennessee Williams, I can think of only 2 in the 20th century who manifestly tried to write plays with an eye toward literary style. One was Maxwell Anderson, but to write literary, he had to slip on a quasi-Elizabethan disguise, which, to be sure, had its vogue for several years, but would probably not go down well with us anymore because of its artificiality. We can stand the artificial from the British, but not from locals. To most of us, all British speech is artificial, so we can't tell the real artificial from the artificial artificial. In short, we don't expect reality from the British, we expect style. For the English, consciousness of linguistic style springs from an unshakable fascination with class, which governs speech from the top of the social ladder down to the Cockneys, who make a taunting point of artificiality. By refusing to speak like other Englishmen, they are free to invent outrageous new usages that generally mock the proprieties of their betters. Clifford Odets was the American Cockney, branding his language with his often delightfully peculiar twists, which the critics thought came from the Bronx, but were really his own invention. Nobody in the Bronx ever said, "I'm going out and get an 8-cylinder sandwich." And anyway, he came from Philadelphia. Odets doted on language and kept a card file with lines he'd heard in the street, usages he would take home and do a little carving on. When he started out, Odets cultivated a proletarian posture in tune with the Depression time, but he was really a literary man who kept his recondite taste to himself lest he frighten the critics and scare off the Broadway ticket buyers. This avoidance was more than his own eccentric choice, however. American theater distrusted the literary, and in fact, until Williams, the American play, in effect, pretended that it hadn't been written at all, but merely happened. Indeed, the highest compliment a play could have had was that it seemed to have written itself. The situation has changed in recent decades, but I wonder if the basic acknowledgement of a play author's existence is basically as a constructor and shaper of the action rather than that of a word artist. It is almost, but not quite, the present situation of the screenwriter. I've yet to meet anyone who went to see a movie because it was written by somebody. In effect, playwriting was commonly thought of as a form of engineering. Engineering with laughs, suspense, or tears. A play was built rather than written. This rubric, I suppose, is part of the mythology of authorial neutrality or literary bricklaying. A bricklayer has no ulterior ideology concerning the aesthetic or moral value of his work. It is enough that it be plumb and level and not fall down. If the Europeans quite differently assumed that a play of any moral or aesthetic pretensions was inevitably intended to mean something and was unavoidably metaphorical, the notion was close to anathema here. If you have a message, send it by Western Union, was the wisdom of the day. The Austrians have a saying: when some calamity happens, a train wreck, a collapsed bridge, there's always somebody to remark, well, who knows for who it's good? For American playwriting, this aversion to metaphorical significance exerted a weighty pressure to suppress speechifying about thematic significance, if any, relying upon the implications within the action to expand the play's general significance. A play that dared to venture beyond this stricture was suspect as unaesthetic propaganda. That classical plays from the Greeks to Shakespeare to Chekhov were loaded with generalizations about power, society, injustice, and so on, was a fact that did not interfere with this aesthetic, which itself, God forbid, could not be called an aesthetic at all, but simply the only right and natural way of regarding theater or any other art. Time magazine, after all, always referred to the author of a successful play as a crack playwright, quite as though he had peered through a gun sight and hit the bullseye. It was all very steely and mathematical, and of course menacing to any author with more than pure entertainment in his mind. The convention of the play as a species of engineering was of course unannounced and largely unconscious. American theater, like the British, had never been other than a commercial enterprise, quite opposite to that of Europe, which had developed out of a very different circumstance. It took George Bernard Shaw nearly 10 years to get a British audience and critics to so much as listen to an Ibsen play for more than a week's run, and then only by stuffing the parts with great stars. There was always apparently an Anglo-Saxon suspicion, if not an aversion, to any play that parted too noticeably from the theater of pure entertainment. In Europe, theater had traditionally been subsidized by either individual aristocrats, remember Lord Strange's men doing Shakespeare, much as music was, or by towns and cities. And these sponsors expected and indeed demanded some kind of contemplation in at least some of the works they were paying for. I recall a conversation I had with Thomas Mann after he had seen Death of a Salesman in New York. The play seemed to have somehow distressed him, but not for the obvious reasons. He was indeed affected by it, as he said, but it also apparently aroused some sort of resentment in him. They are like aborigines, he said, of the characters. There is no idea coming from them. To me, of course, if I may say so, that was precisely the triumph of the play, whose metaphor lay in its very design, in the arc of its story and the voyage of its characters. Put another way, I had learned my American theater lesson. If you have a message, send it either by Western Union or by virtue of a play's inexorability. I think it was Tennessee Williams who first successfully introduced our theater to what could be called literary writing. Clearly, the author of Glass Menagerie and Streetcar was declaring rather than camouflaging his writerly presence on the stage. This stuff did not just happen, nor had it been overheard. It was a highly composed, often sumptuous language in whose writing one easily sensed a certain authorial joy. But here I'm getting really interested in the subject, and I have to stop. So thanks again, and next time it crosses your minds to cite a playwright for this honor, please don't hesitate. It's like the great comedian Fred Allen once said when one of the sponsors of his radio show kept barging out of the control room to excitedly suggest some inept change in the script. After 4 or 5 such interruptions, Alan, his patience worn thin, asked, "Where were you when the pages were blank?" The answer, of course, is that the executive may not have been aware of it, but he was waiting for a writer who, God knows, may even have been a literary fellow in disguise. Thank you.
Why am I the lucky one who gets my picture taken with him? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, before dinner and dessert, I have one more important announcement. On behalf of a consortium of children's book publishers led by Brenda Bowen of Simon & Schuster and Paula Wiseman of Harcourt. Well, you have some fans. Brenda and Paula, would you please stand?
You know where they are.
What's interesting, I guess, Brenda and Paula are one person. Do we refer to you as Brenda and Paula? The National Book Foundation is presenting in the lobby tonight a silent auction of original children's book art, and all proceeds from this auction will benefit the Windows of Hope Family Relief Fund, providing immediate emergency aid, as well as future scholarships and funds for the families of the victims of the World Trade Center tragedy who worked in the food services professions. So representing the fund in the audience tonight are Wendy Maliff and Darlene Dwyer, and I would like to ask them to stand. I think they're over there. No. Okay. Did I call you Wendy? I think I called you Wendy. I'm sorry. But maybe it's a new nickname. Who knows? The silent auction will officially close when dinner is over in about 30 minutes. And now is the time to get out there and make one more bid or increase your bids. This is a very worthy cause, and we want to raise a lot of money tonight for the Windows of Hope Fund. So dinner is served, and we will be back for the National Book Award ceremony.
Could I have your attention, please? Okay, we're ready to start. Welcome back. I'm Deborah Wiley. I'm chairman of the National Book Foundation. I would like to officially notify everyone that the silent auction for the Windows of Hope Family Relief Fund is now closed to further bidding. Tonight is the 52nd National Book Award ceremony. Before I return the podium to its rightful owner, our friend Mr. Martin, there are some people that I would like to thank at this time. Without robust financial support, needless to say, our not-for-profit foundation cannot survive. We are in the midst of an unusually tough economic situation right now, and so we are particularly grateful to the extraordinary sponsorship gifts received this year from Barnes & Noble, R.R. Donnelley, Penguin Putnam, and Random House. And I would like to extend a very special thank you to Bloomberg for underwriting the 2002 Gold Medal Tour of this year's winners. The National Book Foundation was created in 1989 and is still a young institution. Since then, we have been blessed with many loyal and hardworking board members. I would like the many past and present members of the Board of Directors in the audience tonight to stand and be applauded for their selfless contributions to our mission during the past decade and more. Could you stand? Likewise, since 1989, one art director and one printing company have donated endless hours of time, money, patience, and fortitude to producing the annual program booklet for the awards dinner. For their perseverance and generosity, we must ask our artist-in-residence, Neil Stewart and Frank Capo, chairman of Curl Graphics, to stand and accept our thanks. Many of you in this room have worked closely with the professional staff of the National Book Foundation. These 5 people, and yes, there are only 5, labor long and hard to keep our educational programs going and to maintain the great tradition of the awards. Please give a round of applause to Meredith Andrews, Marianne Jacobs, Meg Carney, Sherry Young, and Neil Baldwin. We have our own writers on our staff. Meg's first volume of poems, An Unkindness of Ravens, was published last month by Boa Editions. Neil's new book, Henry Ford and the Jews, The Mass Production of Hate, was just released yesterday by Public Affairs. Now it's time for the awards. I must tell you that we have 4 remarkably interesting and distinguished chairmen this year. And I, for one, am eagerly looking forward to what they have to reveal to us. So let me reintroduce our Master of Ceremonies, Steve. I speak for the entire board and the foundation family, and for everyone in this room, I'm sure, when I offer our heartfelt thanks to you for being here with us tonight. Steve Martin.
Okay. And now it's time for the presentation of the 52nd National Book Awards. I wonder who's going to win Best Supporting Novel. All right, here's how it's going to work. For each of the 4 awards, I will name the 5 finalists, and they will stand in place. Is that a first this year, that they will stand in place? Wow. Woo, showbiz. And after I've announced all 5, you can applaud them. Anyone who applauds before the 5 finalists are announced will be singled out for ridicule. Then I will ask the chairman of the judging panel to step forward, and he or she will announce the winner. The determination, whether it's a he or she, will be determined at that moment, and my decision will be final. The first award of the evening is poetry. The 5 finalists are Agha Shahid Ali, Rooms Are Never Finished, W.W. Norton and Company, Wanda Coleman, Mercurochrome, Black Sparrow Press. Alan Dugan, Poems 7, New and Complete Poetry, 7 Stories Press. Cornelius Eady, Brutal Imagination, a Marion Wood book, G.P. Putnam Sons. Gail Mazer, They Can't Take That Away From Me, the University of Chicago Press. All standing. Well, you applauded before, but what the heck. It's my pleasure to introduce the chairman of the poetry jury, Stanley Plumley, who will present the National Book Award for Poetry. Stanley Plumley is a distinguished university professor and professor of English at the University of Maryland in College Park. His most recent book is Now That My Father Lies Down Beside Me, New and Selected Poems 1970 to 2000, published by the Echo Press.
I, too, would like to thank Neil Baldwin and Meg Carney and the staff at the National Book Foundation for their guidance and support in this selection process. Choosing 5 finalists, let alone a winner in this year's National Book Award category for poetry was not easy. It is never easy, I'm sure. There were many, many remarkable volumes of poetry published this year. The Poetry Committee could have nominated a dozen of them. I would like to offer my special and public thanks to the other members of this year's committee for their clarity of opinion, good sense, fairness, and willingness to see all sides. Those other members consisted of Rafael Campo, Toy Derricotte, Marie Howe, and Tom Slay. The year 2001 has already joined history as one of those turning point years. We all tonight in this greatest of all cities know why this is so. At such times, the art of language becomes even more compelling, communal, and valuable. The art of poetry especially speaks to and from those values that give us our language and our connection to one another. And while the art of poetry may speak to and from individuals in their most secret hearts, it also elevates the discourse of our dailiness and our common purpose. Poetry, American poetry, suddenly now seems particularly important to who we are and what we care for. It is the common language made uncommon in the hands of the poets we celebrate tonight. And not simply those poets who have been nominated for this great award, but for all those who this year wrote the poems and committed them into books. The 5 poetry finalists represent a fair cross-section of the diversity, indeed plurality, of contemporary American poetry. Agha Shahid Ali calls from an ancient world, an ancient culture, but writes his own and his birth country's elegies in a uniquely American grain. Wanda Coleman writes in the brilliantly wicked tongue of one who has come through one of the most difficult periods in American history and transformed its racism and gender bias into stunning and original poetry. Alan Dugan, all by himself, is the last half-century of American poetry, self-contained, whose hard-won, wise, and uncompromising poems have never wavered from speaking truth to power. Cornelius Eady has recreated in his brutal but beautiful imagination dramas of what it still means to be black, young, and male in our culture by the simple genius of his empathy and comprehension. Gail Mazer reteaches us the oldest terms of lyric poetry, that real strength lies in the understatement and the small moment and the quiet crisis of how we arrive at the utterance of our inmost and mortal lives. I'd like to congratulate these 5 finalists, and the winner of this year's National Book Award in Poetry is the poet whose crucial honesty, as much as his resolute art, are irresistible. Poem 7, Alan Dugan.
Taking the award to Mr. Dugan. Neil is whispering something. I can't understand. Asking him, no, taking a photo. Are you sure you don't want a jokester in there? Congratulations. All right, our second award tonight is for Young People's Literature, and the 5 finalists are Kate DiCamillo, The Tiger Rising, Candlewick Press. I've rescinded my edict. You can clap anytime you want. You're liberated. Philip Hose, We Were There Too, Young People in U.S. History, Farrar, Straus, and Giroux. An Na, A Step from Heaven, Front Street Press. Marilyn Nelson, Carver, A Life in Poems, Front Street Press. Branding. Virginia Ewar Wolf, True Believer, a novel in the Make Lemonade trilogy, Athenaeum. Books for young readers. The chairman of the Young People's Literature panel is Beth Kephart. Beth Kephart's first book, A Slant of Sun, One Child's Courage, was a finalist for the National Book Award in 1998 and was also named a Best Book of the Year by Salon.com. Her new memoir, Still Love in Strange Places, will be published in the spring by W.W. Norton and Company.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Neil, Sherry, Meg, and Meredith, who so surprised me with the call last spring and who have served as truest touchstones throughout the months that followed. Among the many questions I find myself asking lately are, what is genuine? What has real meaning? What must ultimately endure? These are questions that we always ask ourselves, of course. But in these fragile and confounding times, it seems essential to seize on answers, to locate truth, and to defend it. This summer, some 160 new books, biographies, picture books, novels, poetry, plays, science, fantasy, history, memoir, and even one quasi-cookbook were submitted to the National Book Foundation for consideration by the Young People's Literature jury. What a daunting thing it was to watch them pile up in the corner of my already wheezing office. What a gift to know that I was not alone, that 4 wise women, Kay Castle, Ellen Howard, Lisa Clayton Robinson, and Jane Resch Thomas, were being simultaneously inundated too. Together, I trusted we would read and we would talk. Together, we would find our way to books both ingenious and genuine. Because our commitment lay in discovering the 5 best titles we were given to consider, our time was spent not just reading, but developing and debating and settling on the measures that would ultimately guide our process. For what is best when comparing bedtime rhymes and studied history? What is best when teen angst and fairy tales are both toppling off the piles? In the end, our criteria were multidimensional, and if you consider genres to be cultures, as I do, multicultural. We concerned ourselves with matters of framing, form, and voice, with credibility and characterization, with execution of plot or storyline. We studied the language. Was it rigorous, tantalizing, fresh? We explored dynamics pertaining to originality and mood, meaning and soul. We thought out loud about each book's innate capacity to alert, embolden, or inspire. Enduring books are the ones that enter the bloodstreams of their readers, that stir and shape and finally transform. They are the ones that get passed on, parent to child, friend to friend, the ones that jolt us toward insight, compassion, idea, hope, politics, or love, toward the answers to the questions we must keep asking. The 5 books nominated for the 2001 Young People's Literature Award answer to every conceivable literary standard. We envision the books bundled tight together throughout the coming gift-given season. An Na's masterful A Step from Heaven will remove the veil from the immigrant experience and take you into a world you owe it to yourself to know. Marilyn Nelson's Carver, A Life in Poems, will introduce you to a most remarkable man with language that is indelible and dignified. With its gorgeous prose and haunting setting, Kate DiCamillo's The Tiger Rising will transport you to the depth of a child's aching soul. Philip Hoose's Tour de Force, We Were There Too, will hearten you with stories of heroes who were too young most of the time to recognize their own greatness. And finally, Virginia Ewart Woolf's True Believer will implicate you with its audacious point of view. As a reader, I am gratified by these books. As a parent, I am blessed. As a writer, I am humbled. And as a human being, I am rescued by their endlessly discoverable graces. When we sat down to craft our guiding criteria, we knew that one day we'd have to choose a single prize-winning book. Today, as we met each other face to face for the first time, we did. We chose the book that was, in our considered estimations, most fierce, most unyielding, most original, most unafraid to get inside the heart of readers. We chose a tough and equally beautiful book, and tonight we honor its author, Virginia Ewart Woolf. Thank you for writing True Believer. Thank you for writing True Believer, and congratulations on fully earning the high honor of this year's National Book Award.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, Marilyn Marlowe, my literary agent, who has always been there, always. Brenda Bowen, my editor, who makes me write better than I can write. Is this happening? Brenda Bowen, who makes me write better than I can write. And Athenaeum and Simon & Schuster, thank you so much for welcoming this book. The National Book Foundation, for what you do for literacy, for people here and everywhere, and how you've, in some small way, changed my life tonight. Thank you to the judges for your generous decision. To my son, Anthony Woolf, and my daughter, Juliet Woolf, thank you for your encouragement. To my brother, Eugene Ewer, who grows pears in Oregon, for his unstinting support. Like most authors, I have wondered since September 11th what I would ever write again, if I would ever write anything, and if so, would it matter? And usually the answer has been no. For 2 months, the answer has been no. You understand, don't you? Of course. And today, my son Anthony and I went to the World Trade Center site, and we walked around, and what I saw was living proof of Faulkner's 6. Faulkner said in 1949, in the Nobel speech, that if we are not writing about these 6 things, we are not doing our job. They are love, honor, pity, pride, compassion, and sacrifice. And I think of them as Faulkner's 6. I used to have them on my wall till I memorized them, and now they're on this wall in here. And I saw them today at Ground Zero. The work that is going on, and the awe, and the humility, and the hush, and the consideration. Love, honor, pity, pride, compassion, and sacrifice. And that's what you and I and all of us are supposed to be writing about. Faulkner said it, and he was right. Thank you.
a beautiful speech. From shock to eloquence. Oh. Our third award is nonfiction. The finalists are Marie Arana, American Chica, Two Worlds, One Childhood, The Dial Press. Nina Bernstein, The Lost Children of Wilder, The Epic Struggle to Change Foster Care, Pantheon Books. Are they all standing or standing? Are people standing? Okay, good. It's just my thing. David James Duncan, My Story is Told by Water, Sierra Club Books. Jan T. Gross, Neighbors, The Destruction of the Jewish Community Center in Yawobni, Poland, Princeton University Press. Andrew Solomon, The Noonday Demon, An Atlas of Depression, Scribner. The chairman of the nonfiction jury is Terry Tempest Williams. Terry Tempest Williams lives in the Red Rock Desert of southern Utah and is the author of Refuge, An Unnatural History of Family and Place, a classic of environmental literature. Her new book, Red, Passion and Patience in the Desert, was recently published by Pantheon.
It's a pleasure and privilege to be here this evening representing the genre of creative nonfiction with my distinguished colleagues and fellow writers. And I would like to introduce them to you now. Alex Kotlowitz, Richard Rodriguez, Christine Stenzel, and Andre Aseman, who is not here. Will you please stand? And I want them to know how much I appreciate the shape of their minds, the play of their imagination, and the integrity of their words. We set about our task in the spirit of democracy. We were interested in the range of human experience, held within the reach of nonfiction. We were mindful of the representation of structure and form, literary journalism, history, natural history, the lyrical essay, memoir, biography, not only of an individual, but of an idea. And we were struck by the passion and presence of writers on the page, the force of their obsessions. Chekhov was right. The two qualities a writer needs most are faith and stamina. We found beautiful work, novels of ideas, and we embraced 5 books of uncommon grace that we believe will endure through time, that they have the capacity to inspire and transform a reader, a community, and expand our understanding of culture. Listen to the power and pleasure of their sentences. There is a flame hidden in water that gives not heat, but life. David James Duncan, My Life as Told by Water. 2 days after his 6th birthday, carrying a small suitcase and his photo album, Lamont moved to his 3rd home in 12 months. Nina Bernstein, The Lost Children of Wilder. Depression is the great flaw of love. Andrew Solomon, Noonday Demons. I, a North-South collision, a New World fusion, an American Chica, a bridge. Marie Arana, American Chica. War is a myth-creating experience in the life of every society. Is it possible to suffer and inflict suffering at the same time? Jan Gross, Neighbors. Each of these books bears gifts and wisdoms, the power to translate a vision for living a life of greater intention, attention, reminding us we belong to a world worth participating in. On a personal note, and this is a story for you, Neil, and the staff of the National Book Foundation, and for all of us who are in this beautiful culture of literature. I live in a small rural community in the American Southwest of about 250 people, bordered on the south by the La Salle Mountains, 12,000 feet, to the north by the Colorado River. It's 25 miles to the nearest town of Moab. We have no services, no gas station, no stores. But we have mailboxes, a little kiosk where the world intersects with our own, a gathering place. Little goes unnoticed in our town, especially 500 books arriving daily. And let me just say, Utah is known for conspiracy theories. Word got out, National Book Award nominees. People were curious, especially when they heard it was secret. I struck a deal with my neighbors. After the 5 finalists were chosen, we'd open up our garage, and the town could come, browse, take whatever books they wanted, and the rest we'd donate to the local library. On October 11th, the garage doors went up, and for 2 weeks, we had a steady stream of visitors. Quickly, Richard and Jolene Williams, devout Mormons. Richard picked Ho Chi Minh by William Duker. He's a Vietnam vet. He read it on his graveyard shift, bagging potash. Jolene, a mother of 12, homeschools her children, had never traveled beyond the borders of Utah and Arizona. She picked Venice, Lion City, by Gary Willis. Laura Kamali, a midwife, picked Misconceptions by Naomi Wolf. She now has feminist theory to back up what she knows intuitively. Ron Drake, who drives the school bus and writes the local newspaper column, Castle Valley Comments, and I have to tell you, many times he said, nothing happened this week, but let me remind you what happened 10 years ago. Devoured Janet Malcolm's reading Chekhov, and he's doing that now, reading Chekhov. Savage Beauty, Seabiscuit, that was the choice of Michaeline Pendleton, who was raised in the Iranian camps of the 1950s. Her mother read her Renaissance as a child, her parents, Horse Bet, even Seabiscuit. And lastly, Bill Hedden, former county commissioner, one of the few Democrats in the state of Utah, at one of the last town councils, quoted John Adams. "We have been afraid to think. The true source of our suffering has been our timidity. Let us dare to read, think, speak, and write." This in the context of advocating the public to retire grazing permits in arid country. Our neighbors are waiting to hear who won the National Book Award for nonfiction, what book they can read next, why these particular words matter. From the author's own text, quote, "I believe that words are strong, that they can overwhelm what we fear. In the maturity of the new millennium, we will, I hope, save this earth's rainforest, the ozone layer, the rivers and streams, the oceans, and we will also save, I hope, the minds and hearts of the people who live here. Then we will curb our escalating fear of the demons at noon over anxiety and depression." Andrew Solomon.
I have to admit to not having recognized my own words. I was thinking, who wrote that? Who said that? My book is about depression. It's about the difficulties of enduring and living with depression, and it's also about things that counteract depression. And I would now recommend to all of my readers winning the National Book Award as an extremely efficacious antidepressant. I think the standard form, as I've watched it for years on TV for other kinds of awards, is to do some thanks. And I, of course, thank my wonderful editor, Nan Graham, my agent, Andrew Wiley, who took me on when I had never published a word very early on, my publisher, Susan Moldau, the head of publicity, Pat Eisenman, and also in particularly my father, who is here tonight, who helped me through the depression that became the subject of this book. And my very dear friend John Habeck, who has helped me through some of the difficulties of waiting to hear what was going to happen. I am extremely grateful to all of these people, and I will just take a moment, given the time that it is, to comment on depression and September 11th. I think that we have just been through a time when the mental health of the entire nation is challenged. It was one of the things that I joked about with friends when I was working on my book, that we would make such scientific leaps that by the time the book was published, there would be no such thing as depression and there would be no readers for what I had written. But this unfortunately was not to be. In fact, we live in a time when the rates of depression have escalated, when prescriptions for antidepressants are up by between 20 and 25%, when the rates of anxiety have skyrocketed, and when also within America we are seeing higher than ever rates of child abuse and domestic violence. The things that we have been confronted with over this recent period are terrible, terrible things. And it is not surprising that in response to those terrible things, we have descended into some of the morass of depression and anxiety. It is also not unnatural when you fall off a ladder that you break your arm, but it's appropriate to do something about it. And it's appropriate to do something about the depression and the sadness which have so overwhelmed the United States. Because if we genuinely allow those things to triumph, then in fact we will have given way to the will of the terrorists who wanted to destroy not simply the buildings and the lives of the people they eliminated, but also the morale and the courage of this nation. It seems to me that the depression we have now cries out for treatment, and that when we talk about the superior technologies that we have in the current war, we should emphasize not only our military capacities, but also our capacities through a variety of therapies, medications, ways of understanding each other, and most profoundly, insights and forms of love to triumph over the assault that has been made on our understanding of ourselves. And so I hope that this is something that will happen in the United States. It is my dream for this book, though of course it's a dream that it be read for many years and that it sell many copies. It's my real dream for this book that it will become unnecessary, and I hope bit by bit we will move forward, and unnecessary is what it will become. I thank you all.
Wow. It's a beautiful speech again. Although Mr. Solomon has ruined it for the others, please keep your hugging to a minimum. Our final award tonight is fiction. The finalists are Dan Shawn, Among the Missing Valentine Books. Jennifer Egan, Look at Me, Nane Talese Doubleday. Louise Erdrich, The Last Report on the Miracles at Little No Horse, HarperCollins Publishers. Jonathan Franzen, The Corrections, Farrar, Straus and Giroux. Susan Straight, Highwire Moon, Houghton Mifflin Company. The chairman of the fiction jury is Colin Harrison. Colin Harrison is the author of 4 novels, the most recent of which is Afterburn, published by Farrar, Straus and Giroux. He was an editor at Harper's Magazine for 12 years.
Thank you. Before announcing the winner, I'd like to thank my fellow judges, Mary Morris, Angela Davis Gardner, Susan Shreve, and Bill Henderson were all devoted in their labors and thorough in their scrutiny. They read the books. They considered the books. They went page by page. They attended to the questions of story and language and character, to the grandeur of the attempt and to the success of the whole. Each spoke with measure and distinction. I and we owe them great gratitude. Thank you, judges. And thank you, Neil Baldwin and the National Book Foundation, for the chance to participate in tonight's celebration. When we give an award for fiction, we celebrate the toil of a singular imagination. We say, in effect, that this book, written in solitude, wrenched from one head, reaches for and grasps something profoundly human, something recognizable and shared. The book may have already reached multitudes, or it may be yet to reach multitudes, but it offers something to the culture that is new. It makes a space for itself. It removes its readers from the chatter and hum of their lives and delivers them to a deeper part of themselves. Having read such a book, it becomes impossible to consider not having read it. One is changed, if only subtly. One has been reminded of the potential greatness of a singular imagination. The public recognition of a book of fiction, and of fiction in general, is thus a connective act of civilization. And during this particular fall, during this poignant American season, we have been reminded that our civilization, however imperfect and worthy of criticism, must at times have its principles restated and its people defended. When we honor books, we honor language and speech and the freedom of the imagination that writers and readers enjoy in America. The 5 finalists for this year's National Book Award for Fiction were each distinctive in voice and vision. We commend each work and each writer and hope that the reading public will seek out these books and discover what the judges found so memorable. The book voted this year's winner of the National Book Award is a portrait of a troubled American family. Little of what touches this family does not touch most of us, too. And if the story is savage in moments, so too is it tender. If its characters pain and exasperate us, as do our own family members, so too do they become worthy of our affection. If this book is satirical and dark, eager to itemize the absurdity and excess of our culture, it is also willing to weigh its complaint against our fleeting opportunity to find what we value most. It wishes to charm and to threaten, to make us laugh and to make us anxious. Written with a broken heart, this novel searches for a piece of redemption. It seeks to be a great American novel, and it succeeds. The winner of the 2001 National Book Award for Fiction is The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen.
Hi. I haven't been nervous until this minute, but now I am. I wanted to say it's been a bad couple of months here in New York City. No, I mean that seriously. Really bad. A dark time. And now, on a lighter note, I'd like to say that I feel as if I was the person who provided some blood sport entertainment to divert the literary community in this time of trouble. And I'd like to say that I was very happy to perform this service for my city and for my country. On the other hand, the next time a public emergency arises, if anyone else would like to step into the bull ring, they're more than welcome to take my place. Having said that, this is just, I'm not here. I'm still sitting in the chair. I'd like to thank some readers. First of all, I'd like to thank the Fiction Committee, which had the unenviable task of picking one book from among a very strong field of 5 finalists. I'd like to thank my agent, Susan Gollum, who I think is the smartest and toughest agent in New York City. I'd like to thank my extended family at Farrar Straus, especially Jonathan Galassi, for all the patience and support they've shown me in the last 14 years. I'd also like to thank Oprah Winfrey for her enthusiasm and advocacy on behalf of the corrections. I'd like to thank the many, many, many reviewers and editors and booksellers, all of them readers, who helped bring the book to national attention. I'd like to thank my friends and family, most especially Kathy Chetkovich, for making life worth living along the way. I'd like to thank all readers everywhere for keeping alive what I believe is the most lovely thing that human beings make, which is the book. Finally, I'd like to thank my parents, Earl and Irene Franzen, for a lifetime of love. I wish they were here tonight. Thank you very much.
And that concludes the 2001, you can stay, it's all right, you don't have to rush, all right? The 2001 National Book Award ceremony. However, there are still some winners out there. May I ask that those of you in the audience who submitted bids for the silent auction to benefit the Windows of Hope Fund, please remain at your tables for a few minutes so that our volunteers can locate you and take your money. And you can receive your artwork. The results of the auction will be posted tomorrow morning on the National Book Foundation website. And on the evening of Thursday, January 17th, the 4 National Book Award winners will be speaking about their works at the Celeste Bartos Forum at the New York Public Library. And then in April, May, and June, there's a lot to go, they will be embarking upon the Gold Medal Tour sponsored by Bloomberg in Princeton, New Jersey, Washington, D.C., Boston, Chicago, and San Francisco. Good night, and thank you all for coming. And don't forget to take the centerpiece books home, and we'll see you again next year.
You've been watching the 52nd Annual National Book Award Ceremony from the Marriott Marquis.